today. By reading the context in the life of Martin Luther, I found so many things. And I had studied Martin Luther for a long time, but not as profound as now. Martin Luther was living in a world that God has prepared for him. Because in God's eyes, nothing happened by chance. Everything had a design. Everything had a purpose. And just think about it. Few years before Martin Luther started writing, the print got invented. And we have this man that in 1440 invented the press, print press. And well, it was good. But then Martin Luther was in a church that he can find himself punishing himself too much because he thought that he was going straight to hell. And normally we don't hear that, but he talked about it. And as I read the book, I found these little things that really made me conscious about some things. And his life, since he was a child, he lived in a neighborhood, in a community that people believed in so many things that didn't have any profound meaning, but they believed those things. And he, as he was growing, he was scared about absolutely everything. Well, his father didn't have much money neither. So, but then his father moved from one town to another town, and suddenly he was a miner, and he started making a lot of money. And suddenly it was not just Hans, now it was Mr. Hans. And it wasn't Luther neither, it was Luther. So, as he went through, he made money, and he wanted his son to be a lawyer. So he sent his son to school to be a lawyer. But his mind, Martin's mind, always was thinking about God. See, God had really planted a seed as a young person in his heart, but he couldn't understand that. And one day he was walking. Now, many people don't understand how it happened, but it was a lightning, and some people believe that a friend of his died, and then he really got scared. And as he went to college, because already he was in college, he decided after 2 months that he didn't want to be a lawyer. He wanted to be a monk. So he did a party and gave all his book to people, and he decided to go from the college, the university, to the place where he become a monk, monastery. And as he started being there, the priest had to call his attention. Why? Because he was fasting too much. And he went days and days and days punishing himself, fasting, because he wanted to be right with God. Because he didn't have the right information. And this is what happened today, nowadays. People take decisions because they do not have the right information. They think that they can do things to be safe, but they don't understand that Christ did it already. Now, in Martin Luther's time, there was a man, a scientist. His name was Galileo Galilei. And this guy was an inventor. And he invented the telescope. And when he invented that, the church of the time punished him and put him in jail in his own home. There was another guy that was an inventor, and the church had problem with them. But all of these things that were invented fit for the time of Luther. Why? Because God will use all of these things to break a reform. And as Luther grew, there was this teacher that gave him in the monastery, gave him a book. That book was called the Bible. Now, here's the thing. People went to church, but they didn't read the Bible. Look like today, right? People come to church, and they do not read the Bible. And Luther took that book And he started reading the book every single day, every single chance. And he was just reading until he found that we are justified by faith. And suddenly, he started figuring out something wrong with this picture. Because there was a man, his last name was Elk, what a name. And he was selling indulgences. And this guy said that he sent more people to heaven than Jesus Christ himself. There's so many indulgences that he was selling. And then you have the purgatory, and to Martin Luther, this didn't make sense. As he became, knowledgeable, then this guy came and asked the supervisor of the monastery, this guy is extremely intelligent, let's send him to school. And they sent him back to the university, and he got a doctorate in there. And in those times, and I know that you guys know that, but I want to practice my English, so that's what I'm telling you. But if you didn't know this, because I took the little things, the little pieces that I never learned, the little pieces that I never hear. And if people don't say these things, they don't know how profound this story is. And he went to the university, he became a doctor, and then he became powerful because he became a teacher. And as young as he was trying to teach people about these things, and suddenly he decided to write some theses. Now here's the thing, in those times, if you didn't agree with something, you will write what you believe and put it at the door in the university or in the church. The dean will come and pick that up and go sit down, and he said that it was something profound. He will call a challenge to the other person that the person is challenging. But they took that. They called it 95 Theses. And he took them, but he didn't do nothing to it because they saw that he was challenging the church of the time. And that's why he never intended to challenge the church. He never intended to go against the Pope. What he wanted was just to talk about some things that were not right. Because the church at the time was bringing slaves into the temple. People were slaves because they have to pay too much money. They were building a huge, beautiful building in Rome, and for him, it didn't make any sense. To make the story short, you know what happened. But here's the thing. 100 years before him, somebody tried to do the same. He went to Rome and they killed him. So now, they invited him to go to Rome. So he was ready to go because he was excited. They invite me to Rome, now I can explain myself. But there was a guy named Frederick, they call Frederick the Wise Man. And this guy was an elector. It's like the elector votes now. And he had part of Germany, and he knew what happened. And he called him and said, listen, you are not going to Rome. I'm going to protect you. You stay here, doing what you're doing, and allow things to happen. Now, let me go back, because I tell you about the press. Now, Martin Luther started writing, because in Rome, they start saying, well, the Pope even didn't know who he was, and they didn't know about him, about what he said. But the people around the Pope knew, but they stood quiet. And he decided to start writing, and people from the newspapers, they start seeing what he wrote, and they found this thing really good, because he was getting in turmoil, not just in the religion base, but this could bring turmoil also in the political. So they start putting his writing into the newspaper, and suddenly this newspaper thing was going not to Germany but to England and to some other places, and suddenly one day the big man found out, who's this guy? Why is he writing this? And excuse me about this, but hell broke loose. Alright? And that's what happened. His intention, even when he did it the first time, for many years later, it was to reform the church, to go to the basic, to bring freedom. Freedom to the soul, freedom to the mind, and allow people to learn, to read, and to understand that God is a God that gave you salvation freely. Because He sent His Son to die for you and for me. Now,